Prince, aye. The Prince, this book at its time, now, at the beginning of the programme they were showing me about old quarters of Machiavelli, and in these old quarters he had a symbol of the cross, right? Now, in each corner, the cross obviously divided up the stone. In each corner he also had this symbol, which was for the first time explained to me, and it actually made the Jesuit symbol make more sense to me. And it was the 4 nails. It had 4 nails, and obviously, like, not knowing that nails have been depicted with crosses for a long time, because I'm no historian, I'd never put that in
I don't know, mate. That breakdown on George Square and that was pretty good stuff.
I've got more stuff than that. And the four nails made me be able to see that with the so that was what they were happy with that. But the problem with the Age of Enlightenment was that it still had a wealthy man couldn't become bigger than an aristocrat. I think that was a problem. So I think that's why the people who create these isms created Romanticism. I'm not saying that Rabbie Burns created it, he was a bad man or anything like that. I mean, this guy just wrote poetry and words and stuff. I'm saying what these words and this movement of
but his words could have been used as a tool.
Is it too much? Is it too much to believe that the writers at the time that were pushed could be said or seen to be as influential as today's pop stars, rock stars, people of that ilk, and arguably the people with the real wants and money to control people could have controlled them? Is that?
Well, Kip, do you think back in that day, like along the same theme, to get your words in print, do you think you had to kind of toe the party line, play your part in the agenda, maybe write the odd poem that was going to be used for people?
Well, I don't believe that's the way it worked, or that's the way how Rabbie Burns got into it. Because
you can see what I mean, though. With like,
I'm going to agree with you in the end. But I believe that existed, but I think outside that existed an ability to print more or less what you wanted if you had the money. And I think that's that's the where Rabbie Burns existed. He wasn't part of any aristocratic. That word I failed to say there. He wasn't part of any elite or anything, man. That guy was born and bred in a farm and whatnot.
He wasn't your noble.
He was like a working man Mason, Freemason. He wasn't like, not all Masons running around in big jets and stuff. I mean, you do get normal run of the ilk people who happen to be Masons. So he was the run of the mill Mason, and that happened. And what happened is he released. I think it was worded a works through a publisher in Kilmarnock, and it was X amount of money, and it had poems by, I think it was Robert Burns, and I can't, I'm paraphrasing this, but in Ye Old Scots or something like that, and something else, and he didn't think anything of it because his poems had never made him money before. He'd never really cracked it. And then, he was going to go jump ship and go to Jamaica. And this thing somehow, some way ballooned.
He was obviously important to a lot of the people that were in power. Because look at even today, around the world, you have the Burns Suppers. This man's celebrated every year. I mean, compare that to other poets.
Well, Kev, he's a very important man in Masonic circles, and I don't understand why. Now, what I'm saying is, like, he wrote poetry, and he could have, because he's regarded as a pioneer of the Romantic movement. I don't know what more he done than that. I don't know what effect he had politically. I do know. Well, now I'm going to paraphrase this. I've got this written down somewhere, and I can't find it, so I'm going to just go for memory. But I do know, towards his latter years, he lost a lot of friends due to his support for the French Revolution. And he died young. I don't know if he died very young. Now, this guy well, I'm going to surmise the words they used was fancy words, but he basically lived life to the edge. I believe he was either abusing drugs, alcohol, or everything at that
Well, I
time.
did hear he'd like to dabble in the drug of the day, whatever that was.
Opium. I think that was opium.
But of course, back then, I mean, you had your opium dens, and it was it's not like it was now, isn't it, Kit?
Oh. Now you just call them,
from the
squats.
Addiction in Glasgow.
Now they're called squats. Right, I'll go back to this. Right, so I've went over the Age of Enlightenment. Right, so as I said, that effects on politics after his death. Right, so I'm not saying he had anything to do with this, but this was his words and feelings and thoughts and romanticism and the outcome of the French Revolution and the American Revolution. The outcome on society was liberalism and radicalism. Now, the movement of, listen to this one, the movement of Romanticism, or the Romantic movement, had its roots mainly in Germany's, and I'm going to murder this, Sturm and Drang movement, and that was again a movement in German literature and music for the 1760s onwards, which obviously then snowballed elsewhere. So I'm not just saying this, Bradley Burns started this whole thing. I'm saying his literature was used as part of a mosaic.
I'd love to know if they used his literature, Kip, or if even just the odd piece was done for them. If you get where I'm coming from, did he write bits in mindful of what it was going to be used for? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm wondering. I mean, again, no big. It's just in my own mind. Was he used, or did they use him?
Well, Kev, it's also, this is a scary thing. If you go and research this, you'll also see Romanticism and the period of Romanticism also called counter-enlightenment, because obviously it was a counter, it was in revolt to the Age of Enlightenment.
See, if that Age of Enlightenment, like you say, was kind of concentrating on science and the individual, the power elite at the time must have known that would be a bad thing, because it's easier to herd people that are in a group, a collective, as opposed to trying to steer individuals with their own ideas, their own minds, their own beliefs.
Well, Kev, something just clicked into place there in a sense. I've often argued that the French Revolution, the result of it was they used a good thing, look at the monarchy, the idea of monarchy is bad, and they've replaced it with the state is now God. At least with the monarchy, they had to justify themselves to God, so you had a book as your defence, right? I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's better than removing the monarchy and God and replacing the state as the ultimate God with the rights of God to kill you and take your life and liberty away, and ultimately that's what has been replaced with. So with the connections now that I've been talking about between Romanticism, Burns, and that connection with the French Revolution, could be argued that was going on with inside Britain as well, to bring around Britain's population to a different point of view.
So, I mean, again, Kip, layman's terms here I'm coming from. The Masons opposed to royalty, yeah?
Well,
the only reason I bring that up is
it's a good question.
The head of the Masons in the UK, is it not the Duke of Kent?
No, it's a good question, Kevin. I think where I would like to go back to with that, because this is a real good one. Because ultimately, what were the goals of? Like, I believe, rightly or wrongly, I think the closest gang I can trace back is the Knights Templar, in their purest form. And
I like how you said that, the gang. They're a gang. They're all gangs.
So, Jesus, what was the question, Kev?
It was like, are the Masons opposed to royalty?
Oh, right. So who mucked up the Knights Templar in 1306? It was the monarchy of France, King Philip the something, and the Pope. I think it was Pope Clement. They don't quote me on that. It was the Pope at the time. I think it was Pope Clement the something.
The only Pope I really know is the Borgia, because of the TV series, man. That's it.
Now, ultimately, their leader at the time, and I think his name is Jacques de Molay, and he was burnt at the stake, I believe, on Friday the 13th. if my theory is correct, and it is only a theory because I've got nothing to go on by the information that I've seen and read and whatnot. But if my information's correct, if my theory's correct, and the Knights Templar are ultimately not ultimately, but the furthest back I can trace it, because I do believe they go back, their traditions and rituals go back to like Babylon and ancient Egypt, and then probably even before then. But anyways, the Knights Templar, where was it up in the story, man? I keep going off in tangents.
It was, you were talking about the king of the time over in France. It was a Friday the 13th.
Oh, right, aye. So ultimately it was the royalty and the Vatican that ordered the killing of Jacques de Molay. Now, at that time, that was 1306, you've got the creation of the Jesuits in 1500s. The creation of the Jesuits was because of the Counter-Reformation. Then there's the argument that over time, the Knights Templar, the Masons, whatever you want to call them, have infiltrated the Jesuits. And the Jesuits have then overtaken the Vatican because the Knights Templar realised you couldn't build an army. It would take less time to infiltrate the Vatican and take it over that way than it would to build an army and take it over. So ultimately, we've got a Jesuit Pope right now. I know the creation of the Jesuits at the start was for the Counter-Reformation, which some argue is still going on, and some argue that what this whole thing is. And I don't discount that at all. I need to look into it, and it's not came on my radar yet. So and I do look into it a wee bit.
You hear enough researchers saying that is the case, Kip.
Aye, and so you have the Knight Templars hating monarchy and the Vatican, but they also are very wise in warfare and usurping and take note. They're the wisest warriors about, man. That's how they made their trade. They were everything. They were businessmen, sailors, traders. They were that's what the Knights Templar were. People think it's just this wee guy riding about on a horse with a shield. They had their own army. They had
placed themselves in the positions of power that you needed, wasn't it? Positions of influence.
They had their own navy, mate. A lot of the pirates, a lot of the biggest pirates are believed to be originally Knights Templars that faked off and just started killing people because they were the most seasoned warriors out there. But anyway, so the Knights Templar hated the monarchy and stuff. So they were in Scotland. Well, it's believed they came to Scotland around 1306, maybe a bit earlier, and helped William Wallace. There's some that talk about Wallace's interactions with Templar Knights, how much help he gets off with him. I don't really know, I've only briefly touched on it, but there are some people that talk about it out there. I know there is stronger talk about... Now, Jesus, I did touch on this, man, and it was... the first time I looked at this stuff, and it was brilliant, man. Robert Burns... Robert Burns, what am I talking about? There's my Tourette's again. Robert the Bruce, I mean. Now, it's strongly suggested that the Battle of Bannockburn, when there was roughly 10,000 Scots and 25,000 English, when the Scots won. It's argued that the Scots won due to the help from the Knights Templar. Why would they help Robert the Bruce? Well, Robert the Bruce was... Jesus, what is it you call it when the Pope kicks you out? Alright, well here it is here, a few weeks before his coronation, right? Now, do you know how Braveheart portrays Robert the Bruce as betraying William Wallace?
Yeah.
Right. How much weight of that there is, you don't know, right?
I've heard from a lot of people causes arguments that...
Right, but listen to this one, right? If you believe this is getting told from a Masonic point of view, and that story's getting told because it's an important part of Masonic history, where Robert the Bruce sold William Wallace out for power, but not for Scotland, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Then you've got the strong evidence, whatever you want to call it, suggestions, people, chitter chatter, saying that Robert the Bruce had help. Now, he killed a few weeks before his coronation. Bruce killed the main rival to his kingship. There was discussion about whose lineage. So he went and killed his main man 2 weeks before him. Then that's when
probably his second cousin.
Oh, this is the word I was looking for. Then he probably was his second cousin, Kev. And then he was outlawed and excommunicated by it was Pope Clement V and Edward I. Clips. And you've got the English king outlawing him. You've got the Pope excommunicating him. You've got the Pope burning the Knights Templar at the stake at the same time, and the French king burning the Knights Templar at the stake. Scotland seems like a good place for Knights Templar who still want to take up the land, to me, my friend. Then you have Robert the Bruce with 10,000 soldiers defeating 25,000 Englishmen. And that's the Battle of Bannockburn. Now, Kev, see if I said the word Loudon to you, what's that associated with you?
Sorry, say it again, Kip?
See if I said the word Loudon.
Oh, it just means it's a dodgy pub in Glasgow.
Right, now, I don't know more about that word than Loudon and the associations that come with it through Rangers, right? Would it come to your surprise that Robert the Bruce's first victory over the English was the Battle of Loudon Hill?
No, nothing would surprise me tonight, Kip.
Now, also, that happened in 1307. I was looking at the lodge Robert Burns went to in Turbolton earlier on in Google Earth, and it was just coincidentally that there was a Loudon Road. I shit you not, man.
No coincidence. Don't go there. Don't do coinky dinkies.
But I don't know. Maybe I think it's all in the road names and architecture and stuff. If you know where to look, man.
I can't believe it, Kip. The clock has caught up with us for another week. How that was 2 hours, I will never know. Mate, that was absolutely brilliant stuff, man. From start to finish, bravo. I'm sure listeners enjoyed that. If it was anything like me, they'd have taken quite a lot out of it. And we do have a few local listeners, so it would have been really relevant to them. So again, man, big up to you for that. That was brilliant stuff, mate.
Here's a couple of weeks snippets. Go and check out all the statues. Quite a lot of them went to the Catholic Glasgow High School. And a lot of them ended up in the army. All the army ones that I've looked at so far went to the Catholic Glasgow High School. Just a coincidence.
Coinky dinky.
And well, Freemasons.
For another week, Kip. This is
GUNN.
Done.